So we would have schools, research centers, of course, private sector and startups and incubators. And the aim is really to create new jobs and to have human capital that is really trained to tackle the challenges of our environment, of Africa, and develop solutions that we call innovation made in Africa solutions.
Great. And then just to your approach to the project and also the financing. I mean, tell us a bit more about that, because there are a number of different models for smart cities in Africa, including in Mauritius, where I am myself. So was it a sort of partly governmental project? How has it been financed, and what's been your approach to getting it off the ground?
Yeah. So Sèmè is a government project. It is part of the government the government has launched in December 2016 a very ambitious plan to develop the country and to find new sources of wealth and development for Benin, not just solely relying on agriculture. So the other two big pillars are tourism and a knowledge-based economy. So it's almost the majority of our funding comes from the government, but we also have funding coming from the World Bank and from some of the UN agencies, especially for some of our entrepreneurial programs. Because as I said, there are three components to Sèmè City. One is education, so higher education institutions. We currently have programs in computer science, in digital design and technology. And we also have research centers, and one research center that's specifically focused on using X-ray techniques to solve very concrete problems. And then we have incubators. So the three components, and most of our entrepreneurship programs are actually funded by development partners.
Excellent. So, I mean, tell us about some of the challenges that you faced. I mean, obviously this year has been a very challenging year with the pandemic, which has added a whole layer of challenges to all sorts of projects. I mean, tell us a bit about some of the challenges that you've been facing of different types since you got started.
I think this year, as you mentioned, the current crisis has actually, for us, been a very interesting time. Because although it's been a very devastating international crisis and a devastating sanitary crisis here everywhere, for us it's also been an indication of what our local ecosystem can do to really develop solutions that are locally developed and that are really relevant to our issues. So we've set up a task force, and our task force has about 120 innovative actors. So they come from academia, they come from the entrepreneurial sectors, they also come from NGOs, and we've been able to create solutions that range from hand washing devices to applications that are now being used by the health ministry, to even have like we were very instrumental in the government launching a wide campaign for everybody wearing masks, and we used the scientific approach to develop the prototype for the mask, and so that they could be produced by any tailor, anyone who has the capacity to develop, create the solutions were part of it. So that showed that our ecosystem is now very vibrant, that we have players that can contribute to develop local solutions, but it has also showed the limits of the problems that we're facing in terms of making sure that the members of the ecosystem have access to funding. Also that when the solutions are developed, that they get to be tested and they get a chance to actually prove that they work, but also to prove all the difficulties so they can be improved over time. So in a way, what our project has allowed to do is to provide an environment where solution can be tested, can be nurtured, help them grow so that they can be applied to a larger, at a larger scale. And this is what the is. I think one of the key challenges for having such an ambitious project, and I think seen seen the project elsewhere, is you can rush to develop infrastructure and think, oh, I'm going to build a smart city, and we'll have all the latest technology. And very often the technology is not adapted to our local usage. And you end up creating stuff that is costly and that can turn into a white elephant. I.e., no one uses it, and after a few months or a couple of years, then it becomes a ghost town, and it's been a waste of money and energy. So what we're applying, and this is something that maybe is quite new in the way that such projects are being launched, is we're doing a pilot approach. So what we've done is we've launched a few weeks ago our pilot phase of Sèmè City, which is a smart building called Sèmè One, and where we can really not only have test the different technological solutions, the usage, the building house our students, our research centers, our schools, our entrepreneurs, so we can see the interactions between all of them. We can also ask them actually to contribute to develop solutions that can be applied at a larger scale, because we have a data center within our building. So we're collecting data, and that data can be made available to the different users so they can develop solutions. And it can be very small things, from how do we improve the efficiency of our energy, or how do we improve our room reservation systems, or how do we make sure that when a problem is reported, then it's being sorted out within a very short period of time. So when you start applying that at a building level, it's much easier to say, okay, this is working within the environment of our smart building. How can we now deploy that to a city-wide environment? And this is what we're doing.
Great. I mean, just tell us a bit in terms of the reaction to the project on the ground. I mean, it's obviously something which is going to create jobs. It's going to bring people in to work there and to promote it and so on. I mean, what was the initial reaction to the project on the grounds? I mean, bearing in mind that this is the first such initiative in Benin, if I understood you well.
Absolutely. So when we did our initial research and our initial feasibility studies, we projected that this project would create directly and indirectly nearly 200,000 jobs by 2030, including a third of the jobs being self-employment. And that we would also attract talent coming from Benin, but also come from abroad. These were very bold projections. People who benefit from the project, and if you look at the in terms of the employment created and our startups, we would have probably helped around 500, between 500 and 700 startups, depending on how we scale. So we're going step by step, and I guess the people are curious. We're talking about innovation. Innovation is something that is quite even a new concept in Africa, but in Benin. So understanding what it means from a very theoretical perspective is difficult. And this is why for us, it's very important that we start showing results early on. Because those results will be used to say, when we talk about innovation, we're not talking about it in very abstract words. This is what it means for a startup that has developed a solution in health, a solution in sanitation, a solution in renewable energy. This is where they started. This is how they've been able to prototype their solution. This is how they've grown. This is how many jobs they've created. So building a multiple of case studies that we can actually use so that the population, the general public understands what an innovation a hub is and how it can improve their lives in very, very concrete ways. So right now we're in the process of developing those little case studies so that they can be illustrative of what we're doing. And I think this is maybe the way of getting more and more people involved into what we're doing, as opposed to doing, those huge plans and showing some theoretical things that are not going to really be concrete and, I guess, relevant for the audience that we want to touch.
Great. So you've told us, Claude, that you're now in the pilot phase currently. So still you've got some time before full implementation. And what would you say would be some of the lessons that you have personally drawn so far about this type of project? Because I mean, there may be other people joining us today. I mean, maybe they're in Benin, maybe they're in other parts of Africa. I mean, maybe they have some of their own smart city projects being developed around them. So as someone that's so personally immersed in it, I mean, what can you tell us a bit about some of the key lessons and some of the key takeaways that you've thought of until now?
Wow, where do I start? I remember when we first started talking about the project and we were going and presenting the project to different development agencies, we had a meeting with the World Bank, and it was very early on. And we presented it, and one of the things they said was, make no mistake, your project is not an infrastructure project. Your project is about changing mentalities. It's about really looking at the way things are done, and your mantra of innovation made in Africa might rely on smart infrastructure and buildings, etc. But that's not what it's about. And if you think it's an infrastructure project, you will fail. And we were like, okay. So I think I'm just going to list some of the things that we're learning. I don't even want to use that as past tense because every day we're learning something new. But maybe the most important one is that we need to be very careful with resources, financial resources, human resources. Frugality drives innovation. And it's not about, throwing a lot of money at the problem. It really isn't about that. It's really understanding the root cause of what our issues are and being very frugal in how we use the resources that we raise from partners, that we raise from the government. This is the number one thing, because if we want to do something that is sustainable, it needs to have impact and it needs to be economically viable. So we ourselves are applying a very rigid business case approach, so that everything we do, we look at its impact, both socially, both economically. How many jobs are we creating? Can we make sure that what we're doing is having results? If it doesn't have results, let's go back and let's review what we're doing. So that's maybe the second key lesson. It's be very rigorous in how you're deploying the project. The third one is it's very easy, especially when you're talking about smart cities, to think that it's about implementing solutions that come from abroad and that have worked maybe in Europe or in the States or in Asia. And we really have to be careful about integrating cultural realities. Our users sometimes do not have internet access. And it's really about looking at things that are relevant and that are going to make a difference in their life. It's not about all the, nice technologies that may work abroad that would not work here. So while we rely on technology a lot, everything we do is not high tech. Some of our solutions are very low tech, and it's okay as long as they are impactful. And maybe the fourth learning is about collaboration, and ensuring that there is a very strong collaboration between all stakeholders involved. So the public sector, the private sector, and academia. And that, it's easily said, but in terms of implementation, this is probably where we have the biggest challenge, because people are used to working in silos. And even when you get them all in the same room, they are not speaking the same language. So it's finding how we can have someone who's in research talk to someone who is an entrepreneur, involve the students in the conversations, make sure that the public sector understands what we do and how innovation can also help push the development agenda. So that's a key learning, and that's something that we're still every day improving upon. So that's some of the lessons learned, but at the end of the day, it's about driving young talents in Benin to do the best they can, and reveal to the world some of the fantastic new ventures and new solutions that they're developing, so we can really have a knowledge-based economy in Benin that can help the continent, and why not help internationally.
Great, that's wonderful. We've just got a few minutes left. I mean, I'll have one more question myself, but if anyone does actually have a question for Claude, we do have a chat function. So do feel free to pop in a question if something occurs to you based on the very interesting discussion. I mean, I was just one more clarification, Claude, from my side. I mean, just tell us a bit about the status of your organization as the development agency. I mean, is that a fully government activity? Is it partly with the private sector? I mean, just tell us a bit more about the model and the collaboration, which again is probably interesting for people in other parts of Africa to understand.
So our development agency reports directly to the Office of the President. So we are a team of about a little bit more than 30. The range of what we do goes from developing partnerships to developing platforms to be able to do what we do. We're not a university, we're not a research center, we're not an incubator ourselves. We're an aggregator of all the services. So we provide the right environment for all those different actors to come and do what they do in a faster and more effective way. I guess what we do as well is advocacy, because we're in contact with the schools and the research centers and the incubators. We know what the issues are, and we can raise the issues at government level. So some policies can also be applied that are taking into account the point of view of the entrepreneurs who want to have access to maybe public bidding or big contracts or more visibility for what they do. So we are a government agency, but we report directly to the president, Office of the President. So that, I guess, is also a learning in terms of how we can drive an agenda faster and more effectively.
Excellent. Well, I think that we are very soon going to be running out of time. So I think I might just wind up the discussion now, as I don't see any questions in the chats. So thank you so much, Claude, this afternoon for joining us. It's been wonderful to hear all about your projects. We wish you all the very best. And yes, we hope that the people of Benin will soon see as well the benefits of this project once it's fully rolled out. And all the very best to you.
Thank you very much, Samantha. It was great talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And yes, take good care. Bye-bye now.